Welcome back to the Bill Boldy Podcast. I'm your host, Pat Rodgers, and today we have a special guest with us in Bradley Will, founder and CEO of Mumbies, based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're excited to hear this story. There's a lot of both positive growth as well as social impact. So, Bradley, thank you for joining us today.
Pat, I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Wonderful. Well, before we get too far, give us an understanding of what Mumbies is and how you got into this business.
Sure. Mumbies, we make natural chews and treats for dogs that support rescues and shelters. And the long story short on how I got into this is um, I'm a lifelong dog lover, like a lot of people out there. And when my dog had passed in 2020, that I had with me for almost 14 years, I didn't think I was going to get another dog. And then I kept seeing these posts on Facebook about these dogs in almost desperate situations from rescues and shelters that I'd follow online. And I decided I had some space. Let me just test my hand at maybe fostering and, get back into it. My heart was, like any, pet parent that's lost a dog, it's a little bit shattered after that. So I didn't want to get so attached. And then these two, they quickly turned me into a foster fail. So if people see the logo of Mumbies, that's my dog Mumble, uh, hence the name. But it kind of thrust me back into the dog natural products market. I knew dogs need to chew. It's good for their health. It's good for their well-being. But what do you give them? There's a lot of junk out there. And so right after adopting them, I learned, oddly enough, about the coffee tree. And I thought back to, actually, I got a picture here. I thought back to my dog that had passed away. Probably can't see this if you're on the audio, but this is my dog. Well, that's him
Love it.
gnawing on a big giant stick. And when I learned about the coffee tree, it's got this wood, and the properties of the wood is it's highly resistant to cracking and splintering. There's no toxins in it. I thought, wow, that's brilliant. My dog would have loved that. And how do I get my hands on some of it? And so I got, my hands on some of it, gave it to my two dogs, or my product testers. And I was in the marketing business, at the time. And I thought this product was amazing. I was like, well, maybe, these rescues and shelters, they need help and they need resources, and I'm not going to be the guy out there on the streets. But what if I could use my marketing ability to sell some things, add value to the market, while we do this other work? And that's when we had launched Mumbies with Mumble as the muse, and just kind of it started with these coffee wood chews, and it caught wind on online, direct to consumer, and then fast forward to today, we have 30 different SKUs. We're in a rise commercial space, which is amazing. It's helped us grow, and yeah, that's how a little bit of the backstory.
That's awesome. And how long have you been doing, when did you start and how long have you been in operation so far?
We took our first sale September 2024, so a little over 2 years, and went full time with this September of last year.
Okay.
So I started ramping up, and then I had to wind things down, or I got to wind things down at my advertising agency, and transitioned out of that business, and then hired our 8 players. They're our full-time staff at Mumbies, which we were all dog lovers in the first place. And we had a mission as a marketing agency we wanted to create a dog sanctuary in Wisconsin, like a meaningful mission, long-term vision of things, a project that we can work on, but had no idea on how that could come to fruition. So, this was the way.
It's an interesting one too, because you've been in that seat, owning a business, running a business in a services-based environment with the advertising agency. And I'm sure there are plenty of kind of, experiences in terms of how you're going to market this product, how you're going to bring it to life. what were some of the challenges, I guess, moving from services to a product-based business as you're kinda learning that side of this and being able to start to actually secure a product, order a product, and get it to a place where you're ready to take it to market? What were some of those, new learnings that you kinda had to retake on?
Yeah, I say a lot of it. The digital side comes fairly easy, just being in it for so long. I'm here in, my warehouse or our Mumbies warehouse, and so a lot of this was very challenging. Figuring out the logistics, the fulfillment. We wanted to handle our own fulfillment. We tried a 3PL and just didn't work the way that we wanted it to work, and also aligning with the long-term vision of the company. So the product is fairly simple, and that worked to my advantage. I'm a fairly simple guy, so any complication with it or formulation or like just all of that probably would have been a really big obstacle. But it just really required starting with something simple and getting into this space. That it was a kind of like it was the result of some problems that we faced in that process of buying the inventory, importing, the material. They would import the finished product because where the material grows, obviously they're not growing coffee in the United States of America,
Right.
maybe Central
Yeah.
America, but it comes from a certain species of the tree. So we had some really big issues, and I just had to learn the hard way. Big financial losses, which ended up turning into a big positive. But how do you receive the inventory? What do you do with it? You get it on pallets, and then what? Like, this is all 100% new.
Yeah.
And so we were literally bringing boxes into our 900 square foot office space and doing the fulfillment in the evenings between doing our client work digitally, supporting them with their ads, emails, all of their digital marketing activities, and then packing orders and stuffing it in boxes and all of it. It's like trying to figure out what size boxes to buy, how do you package it so it's not like a big heavy item going through the mail. What all of it was new,
Yeah.
and it could be very overwhelming. And the one thing that I think is really important is when you start looking at something, it's anything new is all going to be extremely overwhelming. And I say this to the person like listening, like venturing into something big and new. It's like the ignorance is almost bliss because of course it's going to be overwhelming and complicated and things are going to be changing. It's changed since we've started with just AI and the you
Yeah.
know technological landscape. But you just got to take that imperfect action, because if I knew all of these problems and everything, I would be like, no way, I don't want to do this. But
Yeah.
it all happened for a good reason.
Absolutely. I feel like that's so true of so many entrepreneurial ventures or just startups in general. You're like, if I had known how hard this is going to be, I probably wouldn't have taken the leap. But if you're on that edge, the other side is fantastic. And you guys have had some of those, challenges and experiences. And I'd love for you to kind of tell this story about the inventory and what you were able to do with a big problem and kind of turn it into that positive by sharing all of this with, ultimately your mission of rescues and shelters and everything else. I think it's such a powerful opportunity for the listeners to understand that
Yeah.
taking a negative and turning it into that true positive.
Yeah, that's it really starts number one with, just what is my reason of doing things? That's kind of where we started, is like, for me, it's faith, it's this mission driven kind of lifelong journey, that happened later in life for me to want to see dogs not be suffering and in those positions. And the reason I say that and lead with that is because it was the only driver when things got so almost, you're like, there's no chance. Like, there's no chance that I'm gonna make it out of this. Like, things are that grim that just having and holding on to that is the only thing that allowed me to persevere, and having amazing team, that I work with, because those challenges were very difficult. I mean, we were in 2024 entering the busiest season, and we had one holiday season, just a brief one prior to that. So we kind of learned, I knew from, past experience with clients that, okay, that's the busy season for e-commerce. And we saw some of the early results. Then we started ramping up, ordering our biggest inventory order yet, which required a lot of cash up front. And we had that coming, all these delays, it started coming, where this is going to arrive right before Black Friday. And in my advertising agency, we started winding down all of our client work, knowing that we're going to have to do the fulfillment. We're going to have to do all this work, and it's going to be much better invested into Mumbies than, you know, you know, I love all, the clients that we work with, but, there's that turnover that you have, and,
Yeah.
projects that they don't last forever, and their businesses will change, and that's totally okay. That's the part of the nature of the game. And so I wanted to make sure we invested right this holiday season, or that holiday season. And so we also, in anticipating that inventory coming to help offset some of the costs, we pre-sold the inventory. And so in order to pre-sold it, I spent tens of thousands, probably over 50,000, probably, I'm going to estimate on the low end,
Sure.
$50,000 to advertise. And we took over $100,000 in pre-orders. So it was maybe 3,000 orders that we had to fulfill, coming up to Black Friday. And so obviously the activity starts to ramp up. People are buying for the holiday season, buying as gifts to give their dogs. And and we're coming up to Black Friday, and we had this, without getting into the deep specifics of it, we had a severe problem with the inventory. So it did not come as expected as we have previously ordered it. And why I say that is because there's multiple parties, involved, and I don't want to put, any, it out there to where it could get blamed. But it arrived, we got it, we brought it up into this little office space. You see these boxes, probably
Yeah.
close to 400 of these boxes brought up by hand in this office space. I mean, literally, I'm wondering, like, what are people thinking? Like, this is embarrassing. Like, like, what are you guys doing in there as a marketing
Right.
agency with all these boxes in there? And then when we started, opening, and realized, okay, we can't sell this.
Mm.
This inventory is bad. And filed an insurance claim because they had insurance on it. But I also learned the hard way, it was only covered for the invoice value of the product, not for our retail value.
Mm.
Again, which is a big problem. So I was in this position. It was almost a perfect storm of bad things happening, where you pre-sold the product, people are refunding. We had to stop selling all of our product, which was $2,000 to $7,000 a day in sales that we were losing, to be able to make up for it. Inventory got denied. The insurance company, they had said, you have to act like you're uninsured immediately out of that, kind of put the fear into us of, like, we don't do all the necessary steps, which led us to buying this, or like renting from Rise, had to get a warehouse, had to move. Long story short, that was another $15,000 of expenses that we incurred. And I started, like, calculating the losses, and I have no idea when we can get back, selling we couldn't just produce more inventory because it took 90 days to
Yeah.
get here. And I was at this moment where I'm, like, calculating, I'm like, how did we even get here? and one day it's like going great, we're, just making progress, to I'm like staring down a almost $250,000 loss. And it was just, it took a lot of questioning. I'm like, how did that, it's like, what did I do to, create this, and so forth and so on. So, after, a couple, probably like a day of shock and the world's spinning, and like, this is, completely crazy, because when you invest that money into the advertising, that money's gone.
Right.
That money's gone. And so, we had to kind of get reoriented. Okay, say, hey, what's a good product? What's a bad product? And then just try to make the most out of, what we had. And
Yeah.
so it took us about 3 weeks, but Black Friday passed, so we kind of missed that whole boat. And in December, I think it was about December 11th, we got back up to a place where we could start fulfilling orders and start taking sales. And we ended up doing, I think that day, $7,000 in sales. When we came back online, we brought our best game. So we've got a short window for the holidays. And also, when you start selling on December 11th, you have just a few days to be able to get the product to somebody prior to Christmas when they
Right.
want to give it to their dogs. So we were just in this crunch. I think we turned it back on. We ended up, doing, I don't know, something like $30,000 in sales in like just maybe 10 days time, like
Wow.
bringing our A game of everything that we know. We were very honest and transparent on the things that happened with our community. A lot of them stood by us and said, hey, we get it. Those problems happen. A lot of people wanted a refund, and there's just, no excuse. And that's okay too, for you as a company. But we turn it back on. We have a sign on the wall there. We hand packed on our best day 547
Wow.
orders in one day with our whole team. And it doesn't sound like a lot until you actually do it, but that was like, like 8 people working 14 hours in one day
Right.
to get 500 orders put in the mail. But we wanted to get them to people on Christmas. So it took a very long time to even recover. I'm surprised that we were even able to dig out of that, months. And even months down the road, it was like in this position of like, we have 3 weeks. I remember looking at all of our debts. We had 3 weeks to come up with $50,000.
Wow.
And we said, okay, we got to do it again. And created our best, strategy, our best sales campaign. How do we not go ask people for money? How do we sell? Like, how do we
Yeah.
add value to the market? And on the third week, we came up with all 50 grand in sales in 3 weeks. And, just kind of, slowly kind of digging out of that hole. So, I think, just kind of recapping is like, it's like all through this process, you see, like for us, we see all these dogs that are resilient, and it's like the nature of Mumbies is just this resilience of like all these dogs that have been, forgotten, or just neglected, and it's like they come back, they bounce back with, pure resilience, and there's something to that. So I think it's perfectly fitting, to go through that experience, because it really humbles you, and really it makes you, wonder, makes you wonder why you're in this in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's an incredible story. I mean, you could have said, "We're done," so many times throughout that process, and yet kind of stuck with it, and here you are today. And we'll definitely kind of touch on some of that success. I know you've also, with some of that product, donated that to shelters and had an incredible turnout. Was that this order that we're talking about, or did this happen a second time where you had that inventory that needed to not be sold, but ultimately donated to, shelters and others?
Yeah, the products, they were good. So it's a combination of both. The product had these imperfections, cause you. the changes in temperature, the changes in moisture, because it's a natural product, it can form these imperfections, these cracks. And so the product is, good. It's just we don't want to sell it and support a product that, some people are like, hey, well, why don't you just, sell it for pennies on the dollar? And it's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put that
Yeah.
product out there. So it was still good, but every so often we have this what we call it Mumbies misfits. Think of like a grocery store.
Yeah.
A grocery store might have some bruised fruit or something like that they're not going to sell, but maybe they find another purpose for it. So we had a nice big selection from that problem, and then over time, we also collect product that might have some cracks that form, and it's still good, but
Yeah.
we don't want to sell it. And also, especially in like cold temperatures, if we put it in the mail, it can cause even more of a problem with the rapid changes of temperature. It's more
Sure.
stable in the warmer climate. So things we didn't know about. But yeah, as time grew, like we held on to that, because we wanted to use it as proof for the inventory or for the insurance claim that we were, concerned with. And then, also you don't want to just throw it away. It's
Yeah.
thousands of pounds of product that we've accumulated over time. And then what we would do is with our customers in our newsletters, we say, hey, if you work with rescues or shelters or stick libraries, we would include them in their orders for free, but the cost to ship them is incredible as
Right.
well. Like one of these boxes, these bigger boxes, is $100 to ship. All right,
Yeah.
about $50 to $100 to ship. It could be anywhere between, depending on where it's going. So yeah, we had several pallets of this material here in our, commercial space, and it's like, it's like a logistical nightmare trying to organize and figure out what to do with this. And then also, like, people are saying, hey, just go drop it off at a rescue shelter. Well, we don't even know if they want the product because
Right.
it's not perfect, a product for everybody. Like, we don't know if they're going to want it, they're going to use it, it's going to be useful to them. So finally, it was just like, okay, now it's time. Like, we need to, start uh, close this chapter. We've got some more inventory coming. We need to clear some space. And, how do we just not try to, squeeze pennies out of this? How do we just turn this into something great? And that's always been my mindset. When I take a massive loss, I try to, like, in marketing, or, if an ad account fails or a campaign fails or something like that, and I'm taking a loss, I say, well, how do I turn this into like a 10x win? How do I
Yeah.
flip the script on this and make it something so great that it makes it all worth it and for a reason? And so, so I had put it out in my local community group on Facebook of just, the public, town hall. And I just asked for help. Like, what can I do with these? Who do you know? How can we distribute this in an easy way in one swoop? I didn't want to schedule, 100 different people coming and picking it up and, all of that. And people just flooded full of comments on, like, what about this rescue? And just people started emailing me, and I probably had 75 emails within 48 hours, something like that. And I was like, whoa, okay, maybe we could do like an open house or something like that and have a little bit for the community, have a lot of bit for the rescues and shelters that we want to support and continue to support. That was the other thing, is that if we were able to build a relationship with these rescues and shelters that can actually use the product, as we accumulate more, let's just say a certain percentage are going to fall into this category, then we have like a little distribution network that we can continue to give to locally, at least here, starting in our backyard in Milwaukee. And so, like, we started, getting all of these rescues and shelters to say, hey, we have a good group of people. And then I had reached out to just a couple of news networks because I'm like, well, what if we can, kind of fill the space only with rescues and shelters, and they can help, put the word out that we're going to give some of these away, and then anybody at last minute can get in that's not going to be normally seeing it just in this like town hall group. And then maybe it will help bring some awareness to what they're doing, which is the
Yeah.
most important thing. And so one of the um, reporters, he reached out and he's like, "Yeah, I think this is great, and I would love to do a story on it." We're like, fantastic, and had no idea. We just thought like a couple, people would hear about it and want to come. I had no idea that it would turn into what it would turn into, which we had people as far as like Alaska. It was like syndicated on all these different news networks, Alaska and North Carolina, emailing us saying, "I just saw it on the news. Can I come pick some up?" We're like, "We're in Milwaukee." Like,
Yeah.
it was wild. So yeah, we had hundreds of emails, and it was a huge blessing for the company. People discovered the company, they bought from the company because of what we do. That wasn't the intention. And we had an amazing group of rescues and shelters come out. We gave away over 3,000 items. It was actually
Wow.
close to maybe a little over $50,000 in retail value of product if it was in the perfect condition of product.
Right.
And I couldn't be more thrilled that it went for good use than trying to squeeze a couple pennies out of selling it to somewhere or something.
That's incredible. I mean, just that, ability to have your ultimate mission still fulfilled by a problem, right? You turn this big challenge that you had and still turned it into fulfilling your ultimate mission, which I think is just an incredible way to handle this. And obviously taking that glass is half full approach. It could have gone the other way and you're squeezing pennies, you're ruining the brand long term, but you turn this into something that's actually fuel for both the mission and the business. And how is that kind of, growth and awareness by having a social give back, a social impact? How has that, improved your overall business and awareness? I know it's not the end goal of just that, but how has that impacted? Because there is always this tug of profit versus impact, and you guys lean into that impact. I'm curious how that's also kind of fulfilled the business goals.
Yeah, the trickiest thing. And you start thinking about it, right? And it's like the crack product, the imperfect product, is not the best representation of our brand.
Right.
And it's like we don't want that to be our product image. And that I wrestled with that because I knew, hey, people post about it. They love sharing about their dogs. Our customers do. But at the end of the day, like we have to stay true to like what got us here in the first place. And it was the non-negotiable, unwavering fact that we built this company to be a resource for rescues and shelters. It does this. There's not. I hope people listening don't like take that and like you got to put it through your own filter. And the reason and why you're doing what you're doing because it doesn't work for everybody. But for us, this is important, and it's important to our customers. The one thing that I've learned in marketing is the best piece of marketing advice that I've learned through working with all these incredible clients is you've got to understand your customer, what they want, what's important to them. And we led with what's important to us, which is supporting rescues and shelters, helping, putting resources in the hands of the people that are preventing dogs from being euthanized. It's important to our customer. It's not important to every customer. And we realize that. We realize that maybe it tires people out and they don't want to, hear about, all the heartbreaking stories. I get it. I totally get it. But if we filtered it all out and washed it all down, it wouldn't be staying true to who we are, and it would alienate a lot of the people that follow us. So I was considering all that and people posting about it, and I understand it will push people away, but our product already pushes people away, and it also attracts people in. The people that might love a plastic bone and the traditional route, they might hate us, and
Yeah.
we get the comments about it. And I think that anyone in business, if you're not being hated for what you do or being severely criticized, you're probably not doing, you're probably not operating at your fullest ability and capacity.
Right.
I found it shocking that people would hate us. I found it shocking that people would say, leave comments on our socials and stuff that say, "You have a pit bull in your logo. I will never shop from your company." Like, what? Like, this is crazy, but
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. People have, they're strongly rooted in their beliefs, and everybody in business is not meant to appeal to everybody. And so it has really strengthened our ties in the community and the things that we really want to focus on and evolve into. The community, I think, really rallied, the local community. I mean, and national people that have seen the syndicated story, but they really rallied behind us. And I felt it, it was incredibly humbling to receive that support, through the challenges that we went through. Like, people would just go and buy, just like, I want to support this company, and they went and just bought. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, to give it as a gift, whether, so it was a really good thing, and I'm really happy that we did it. And when we did the event, people just like showed up and were like volunteering and like helping support the event. Like, we don't even know you. This is amazing. So I think it's going to turn into something bigger of a once per year event that we do, and get more people involved. And you never know until you get out and take that leap, right? And
Right.
just what things can, what they can spawn into.
That's fantastic. And I mean, I think, there's a lot of it reminds me a lot of Tom's, shoes and this, when you're truly dedicated to that mission, vision, values, your true customers will also come out of that, right? If you hold true, if you don't bend on your principles, then that's where true trust in a brand comes. And I think it's a testament to the volume of people that showed up, not just to be able to collect something that they can give to, dogs at a shelter, but to just volunteer just because they want to be a part of it. Is such a momentum builder for your team. I'm sure. I can't imagine what that felt like after that event. You've had all these challenges, and now it was like people are showing up just because. And now it's like, all right, where do we take Mumbies next? Right to the moon.
And I was when they were like, "Hey, the cars are down the block," I'm like, "Oh man, am I gonna get?" Because then the fear like creeps in, which
Right.
I'm sure everybody has, that imposter syndrome, fear, where it's like, "Uh oh, maybe Rise is gonna be." I was like a little worried. I'm like, "Oh, or is this against our lease and whatnot?" But sometimes it's like, it's amazing that where I was thinking, I'm like, "Oh no, this is going to be a problem for my landlords, our landlord," that it actually turned into an amazing conversation, and here we are, talking about it,
Yeah.
something good that happened. So like, fear is the enemy. It's like being able to embrace that and like moving past it, because it can keep like people stuck. And
Oh
I know
yeah.
I was like wrestling with that as it was happening.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
So
no,
I'm
we're
glad you guys didn't kick us out.
no, absolutely, man. We love. I mean, we've had groups, scenarios like this. We've had food banks that need some space. I mean, anytime that we can be a part of the community, that's why we're there. And so this is just one more phenomenal example of business owners taking it on themselves to give back to the community, and that's just so much impact. And so, we appreciate all that you guys are doing in the community as well. And now, as we kind of like take these steps, it sounds like you financed some of this. We had some debts, loans on inventory and things, but recently you raised some capital and have kind of joined, Generator in that capacity. What was that decision and moment for you to say maybe it's time to throw some gasoline on this fire or just take that next step? What was it for you that kind of pushed you in this new direction of going out and saying, "All right, we're all in. Let's go make it happen."
I mean, it's like our whole journey, which it's kind of all happened by chance, and call it luck, call it fate. I think after the experience and kind of the losses, and for me, I put everything in personally as well. So it was kind of like a very difficult situation. All of, you know, supporting with what income we had left after letting all of our clients go, or, just ending our agreements, and still having staff that depends on this income, and then simultaneously these challenges, and then Mumbies not being profitable. It was putting me personally in a big financial strain. I put a lot of resources, basically everything into it, bet it all.
Yeah.
I say bet the house,
Yeah. All the chips in.
uh, all chips in. And I started looking at it of like I was buying these different stocks, in my portfolio or whatever. I'm like, well, why am I not betting on Mumbies? I'm betting on all these other companies, but not me. So it was just getting to this place where, just like the lack of capital is preventing us from doing the things, buying bigger inventory orders because it's all cash, and the cash constraints were pretty real. And just oddly enough, we for one of our clients, we had spoken to Generator, I think doing an interview for a newsletter about them. And we had reached out when the thought of capital, we were like, hey, maybe we'll do like a crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding campaign, so that our customers can be owners in the company.
Right.
And we reached out to Generator for just advice. Like they're right down the hall of, they have an office, there, knew nothing about the world of raising capital, like
Right.
zero. I kind of avoided it because I was never in like the tech world.
Yeah.
Simple guy that does marketing campaigns, digital campaigns online, like, and so that world, I thought you had to be kind of like a software company or like this innovative business to get funding or go on Shark Tank or something like that. So we just reached out for advice and like, could you just like give us advice, point us in any direction? And they're like, we spoke to their team and they're like, hey, like you got some good things going on. And to me, I'm like, yeah, we're selling, but like this is a real struggle. And to them, I think that they were seeing like that we are at, more traction than typically that they see. So we had probably 20,000 or more, 25,000 customers, all direct to consumer. Pretty good brand, and they were like, hey, we have this thing called an accelerator program coming up, and it's here in Milwaukee. We haven't done it in a while since COVID, and kind of summarizing, what they were
Yeah.
saying. And think you'd be a good fit to apply, but it's like right around the corner. And I was like, and they're like, it's whatever it was. I think it's like 3 months long, and you have to commit hours a day. I'm like, there's no way I could do something. I got to run this business and this other
Yeah.
business. I, I don't have the time for this. And so they're like, well, just, if you feel up to it, apply. And then it just like not really kind of knowing what it was, applied, and they moved us to like an interview. And, then we, got to the final round and they made us an offer. And we're like, what in the world is this happening? Because we were just coming off of like these really tough, financial challenges, these ebbs and flows, and now they're making us an offer to be a part of the accelerator program, and that comes with an equity investment. And it was just like, like starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. The equity help, right? That helps, but it was more so like the resources of like, I don't know anything about this world. Like, how can I get more involved? And so we, I just kind of said, like, let's go, let's jump on it. And it was a really great decision. The people at Generator, I can't say enough great things about the whole entire team. It was a huge blessing, just how much I learned in that process.
That's awesome. And it is, the kind of e-commerce, physical product world of venture is really just emerging. To your point, it was reserved for tech and all these things for so long. But now this kind of world of e-commerce and the boom coming, these VCs are now interested in this as well, and these accelerator programs. And so it's definitely a really interesting part of the equity stack, as you mentioned, if you need that capital, but also if you can find the right group, an accelerator program like Generator gives you so many tools and mentors and people just outside of your network that you may not have known willing to help and dive in. How much have they kind of, stayed with you or impacted you? Do you stay in touch with some of those folks as, another bad day rolls around? You're like, hey, what can we do here? How have those kind of relationships bloomed as you've, joined the accelerator and move forward?
The accelerator was incredible, and we still stay in touch. I actually got a call today with one of the team members at Generator. They're constantly rooting us on. The cohort was an amazing group of entrepreneurs. We stay in touch. And through the process, they put us together with over 50 investors that we pitched, Mumbies to as a part of a larger raise. We didn't we had some great conversations with them, those investors.
Yeah.
We did not get an investment, which I'm actually a little happy about,
Right. Yeah.
uh, because it goes back to, like, I think cash is can also be a problem. It can be a crutch. You don't figure things out, and because people didn't say immediately yes, doesn't mean they won't say yes in the future.
Right.
We kind of pulled back and pumped the brakes and said, even at Generator, the founder of Generator, Joe, was like, hey, you could probably get by and figure this out and not have to raise capital. And so, sometimes when you're in it and you have the problems and like inventory and all these challenges, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
But in that process, we've innovated some really cool things. I think people see us as a, physical products business, but I think it's going to be much greater than that. Direct to consumer is our strength, and we're building a direct to consumer army.
Mhm.
And we don't want to depend on any other retail channel for our sales. I've seen it so many times in my 20 years in marketing where one leg gets cut out right from underneath you. It could be a Facebook ad account where that's your primary sales channel, or somebody's on Amazon and they get shut down, or they're in a retail store and they, decide to pull the contract on you and they're stuck with hundreds of thousands of inventory. I've seen that with our clients.
Yeah.
And so we were also on TikTok, for example, and they just deactivated our affiliate program. And I'm just like, I'm tired of this. I'm
Yeah.
so tired of this, of like depending on and playing and constantly running everybody else's race to sell. And so we've innovated, we've built a pretty cool software for Mumbies. And I think that we're going to be doing some very innovative stuff when it comes to e-commerce, where people that have these stores, they're constantly looking for apps to kind of bolt on to their experience. And we're building some baked in things to Mumbies for our customers, for our partners, to allow them to be able to sell, to be able to refer, and I think that's going to be really cool things. So then it's going to also, and that, it makes me more appreciative to Generator because they bet on us, and others had more information and they had less information and they took the faith. And I have so much gratitude and appreciation for Troy, for Joe at Generator, because they're great at what they do. So I don't want to make this all about them, but I got to give appreciation to where it's due.
Yeah.
And I think in the cohort, there was a young entrepreneur, Adian, who is building this tech AI startup, and being in that, it just opened my mind to this possibility. And he's like, well, hey, let me show you how easy this is
Yeah.
to build this concept of bringing it to life. And he sat me down and had me AI coding this tool. I'm like, wow. Like, just, like how fast things are changing as far as
Yeah.
technology. And so anyways, that's a tangent, but I think e-commerce is really interesting. I'm very bullish on Shopify. I'm very bullish on all this technology that's coming to these independent, small, direct to consumer entrepreneurs. You don't have to fully rely on retail and the online retail.
Right.
Um, you can,
You don't have to
but you don't
you don't
have
have
to.
to have the behemoths in your court. You can
Yeah,
do it on your own.
yeah,
Well, I love that your point, I think this is something for every business to consider. You may have opportunities for more capital, but is more capital better? Because ultimately you're also giving up some equity there. You don't have to fight as hard. You might rest on your laurels with more capital. And it sounds like through all of that, you guys have kind of found this new lane. And what I love most about that experience, the capital's great, the learning's great, but you exposed yourself to other industries through that and found something that actually applies to your business that you may not have experienced otherwise. And I think that is so critical for entrepreneurs to get out of just their own lane and find some of those other experiences, those other industries, because we can always learn something new from them. And ultimately, it sounds like that's a huge driver of kind of where you want to take the business and kind of what's next for Mumbies. What is that overall vision and kind of next step as we move forward from here?
yeah. It's a good point. Is To me, it's always worked to my advantage being an outsider. Coming into the pet space with zero experience in the pet space, so interesting because there's like everybody they talk to you, like, you got to be at this big pet conference.
Right.
Like, that's how you make it in the pet space. And that could be true. That could be true for a lot of people. But I've always loved being an outsider. Even with our clients, we never like picked a rinse and repeat client. Every client we had was a little different, like different industry, and we could cross reference the projects. So, for example, we had an amazing client for a long time, top podcast in the world. We would do all sorts of big campaigns, you know, tens of thousands of leads, hundreds of thousands of sales on a single campaign. And we would be able to take these ideas and concepts and bring them down to the small local business,
Yeah.
help them think differently. So for Mumbies, it's I think it works, to the advantage of being a little ignorant and not knowing because you're not following everybody else's playbook. Now, what I envision Mumbies in the future of commerce, I see Mumbies as the number one place that people shop for their natural pet essentials online. Like, without a doubt, it's clear, it's crystal clear, and that every purchase supports rescues and shelters. It's got built-in giving. We have I think, a pretty innovative way that we're doing this and putting hands in the resources that these organizations and amazing humans. It's going to go a long way. I want to break our own kind of thinking in terms of advertising.
Hmm.
We spend a lot of money on advertising on Facebook. It's one of the best ways to reach the widest audience. And I'm rethinking things. How do we instead take that money and put it back into the hands of the people that need it the most? And so this platform is, I think we're going to evolve from just our own products, and we'll continue to sell our own products, continue to expand our own products, our treats, our chews, high value for our customers. but we're also going to partner with some of the most amazing natural emerging brands and popular brands that have similar values that we can offer these products to the Mumbies community. And so I kind of think of it similar to like a Thrive market for
Sure.
dogs. I think that's the bigger vision, and to build a large sanctuary in Wisconsin that the can help kind of provide relief for dogs in just the most desperate situations, and continue to build and give back to the rescues and shelters that need the resources. They're underfunded, and they do a lot with a little. I just see these big companies and how much resources and how much is wasted. And I want to use that gift of stewardship to be able to, allocate resources to where they need to go.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, the grassroots aspect of that, plus maybe a Mumbies incubator, it sounds like, as we as we get these brands going on the
Yeah.
platform. I mean, all of this is so powerful, and I just love how fast you're innovating, right? I mean, I think you're every step you're taking that bad experience and saying, all right, how do we make it good and continuing to grow each and every day. So I really appreciate you sharing your story and all of these, unique details and thoughts for folks that are going to be coming up against this as well. We always like to end with some food for thought, idea or advice for other entrepreneurs. What would be something that you could leave the audience with in terms of their own journey?
I think the thing that has helped me the most is to think bigger. If you think you're thinking big now, take a step beyond that. Expand into the absolute uncomfortable space to where it puts fear into your body, into your mind when you think about it. Think so big that maybe it is likely you'll never accomplish this thing in your lifetime. That's a good place to be. I kind of made this transition of being crippled by fear, imposter syndrome, perfectionism. And on the other side of it is this freedom of I'm willing to look like an idiot in front of the world. I'm not afraid to fail because I know where I'm going and it's so long term, and people will pick apart the small nuances of the day to day. What's this guy in a warehouse, has spent, 20 years almost behind a computer doing this. And now I work in a warehouse, packing orders, doing all that stuff, driving for it's fun. I love it. I couldn't be more grateful for it, this journey and learning. I think people got to expand this mind that we've been given and kill these constraints that are holding us back, because these entrepreneurs can really make change in the world, not just financially for ourselves, but we can do things that don't depend on anybody else. Doesn't depend on the government. It's like to step in. That's the thing I think about. Like, why isn't the government not doing something about this and putting resources, for these nonprofits? Like, who cares? Go out and do something.
Yep.
Get off of the social medias and like the debates, and go act, think big, step into it, be uncomfortable. And that's been the kind of like ruling mindset over these past several months of, you know, the times that you're alone is like you're doubting, just like get beyond that, think big, and go after it. And no, you're
Yeah.
not going to get it in your lifetime, but that's okay.
I love it. Earlier you said that overwhelming feeling. If you're if you're not feeling overwhelmed and a little scared, you probably aren't thinking big enough. And I just love that because I think it's so true. Don't ever limit yourself. There's no end if you desire there to be growth. And so I think that's a phenomenal way to leave this. And Bradley, I really appreciate you joining us today, diving in on everything you're doing at Mumbies and the future. We appreciate it so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.